Someone said, heterosexuals often find themselves in the stereotyped male-female roles, in spite of women's liberation. Is there a similar division of traditional roles for gay people, or is it more balanced? Well, some gay people are more masculine or feminine than others. We fall across a spectrum, really. There are butch lesbians and lipstick lesbians, and some gay men are more masculine or feminine. I know there are some guys who say things like, I'm attracted to men, so why would I want to be with a guy who acts like a woman? And that's their choice. Personally, I don't even care that much. The idea of restrictive gender roles among gay people seems ridiculous to me. If you're a man in a relationship with a man or a woman in a relationship with a woman, this already shows a complete disregard for traditional roles. So why would you insist on clinging to some idea of what gender roles are supposed to be? I just don't see why it should matter at all. Men don't need to be manly, and women don't need to be womanly, and if they are, that's fine too. Anyway, I don't think there's anything within the gay community that would compare to actual gender inequality. It's not as though some of us are expected to do the cooking and cleaning at home, and others are expected to go out and provide for the family. I think we're fairly well balanced in that regard. There aren't really any restrictive stereotypes. Of course, I could be wrong. Next question, do most gay men choose to only be either a giver or a taker exclusively, or do they mix it up a bit? I love how you phrased this. It made me think of flipping a coin and saying, well, I suppose I'll get fucked in the ass tonight. Seriously though, that's a good question. When a man and a woman are together, the genitalia that are available for use make it pretty obvious who's going to be penetrated and who's doing the penetrating. Although, with the proper equipment, this can also be reversed. But when two men get together, it could go either way, so how do we figure it out? Well, we tend to have varying degrees of preference in one direction or the other. Some prefer to be on top, some prefer to be on the bottom, and some are fine with both. And these preferences are taken into account. Compromises can be made if necessary. It's rare for a total incompatibility to arise, because if you and someone else have reached a point where you want to sleep together, you're going to work something out. And aside from penetration, there are plenty of other options which are about the same for us as for you. Next question, as a gay man, if you look into a mirror, do you find yourself sexually attractive? As a straight person, I'm pleased with how I look, but objectively, I would not want to be with myself. Okay, that is the best question ever. You know what this reminded me of? Did you fuck me? I fucked me. But no. I try to make myself look good, but I don't really judge my appearance by the standard of what I find attractive. And if I somehow encountered a copy of myself, I don't know if I'd be interested, but if they were, I wouldn't turn them down. Next question, why do you think people are afraid of gay people? I think it's usually because they just don't know any gay people personally. When they do, they tend to realize that gay people are first and foremost people, just like everyone else. The fact that we're gay isn't really that important. But if you aren't familiar with gay people, it's easy to see us as some kind of abstract, mysterious other. And when you lack any personal experience, there's a gap in your knowledge that can be filled in with all sorts of misconceptions. There are some crazy people who are pushing an agenda and they want you to think that we'll rape you and molest your children. But more often, it's just because people absorb the value system of their culture or religion, which disapprove of gay people for whatever reason. And they never really bother to think about whether this is actually rational or sensible at all. Essentially, people usually don't like us because they have a simplistic and likely inconsistent view of morality that fails to fully account for reality, and they just haven't gotten around to correcting this, or they have no desire to, which is unfortunate. But we shouldn't write them off as a lost cause. A lot of them have just been misinformed, and they can change their opinions if we can give them some good reasons. Next question, how does your family feel about you being a gay atheist? Well, let's see. My mom knows, my dad knows, my sister knows, and as far as I know, they're the only ones who know, and as far as I'm concerned, they're the only ones who really matter. And from what I've seen, I don't think they have a problem with it. We can have open and civil discussions about both topics without any conflict arising. They listen to me, I listen to them, I haven't gotten any negative reactions from them, so I would say we have a mutually agreeable understanding. I think the situation is pretty good. Next question, why are some gay guys, more like most, overly concerned with penis size? Gee, I don't know. Do you talk to a lot of gay guys about what size penis you prefer? I don't, actually. For us, it's just not that big of a deal. Within a certain range of penis size, which encompasses the vast majority of penises, everything's a-okay. There is no issue. Are straight guys overly concerned with vagina size? Superficially, maybe. You know, hooray for tight vaginas. But when you're actually having sex, you probably don't care that much. Obviously, there's a variety of individual preferences regarding penis size, and I'm sure it's possible that gay guys tend to prefer larger than average penises, but I've seen no evidence that this is the case. Really, a penis that's too big can be just as bad as a penis that's too small. I'm sure you understand why. Next question, controversy still exists regarding the removal of homosexuality from the DSM. Many believe that homosexuality does meet the criteria for a disorder, but that it was removed for political correctness. Now, the DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, a publication of the American Psychiatric Association which lists criteria for diagnosing mental disorders. And I want to make it very clear that political interests should never interfere with matters of science, regardless of the cause they're advocating. And around the time that homosexuality was removed from the DSM, there were many protests against its inclusion as a disorder, but the decision to remove it was based on studies demonstrating that homosexuality was not inherently pathological, and this refuted earlier studies which seemed to show that gays and lesbians tend to have some kind of mental disturbance. The problem was that these studies had a sampling bias because their studies were gays and lesbians who were in therapy or in prison, and sexuality aside, these people are usually more likely to have mental problems. Later studies eliminated this bias by choosing gays and lesbians from the general population as subjects. Once this was corrected, they found that homosexuals are about as mentally healthy as heterosexuals. Now, actual mental disorders tend to have a serious impact on the sufferer's quality of life. Major depression, social anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, panic attacks, schizophrenia with paranoia and hallucinations, bipolar disorder, all of these are very unpleasant. Being attracted to men or women doesn't really seem comparable at all. I don't think it's anywhere near a mental disorder.